Hello and welcome, everybody. I am so excited for today's session. My name is Pragya from Rev Genius, and I have someone fantastic who is the expert on everything BOFU that you can think of. So, Lashay, thank you so much for being here with us, and thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me. I am super excited to dive in with you guys today.
Absolutely. And if people in the audience, if you can just give us a little bit of a sign telling us if you can hear us right, if you can see us right, then we know that we don't have at least any technical issues and we can actually get to the content right away. Perfect. So I see people already telling us that they can all hear us. We are
Awesome.
very excited. I just want to kind of like give a shout out saying that this is one of our we get a lot of registrations for a lot of our sessions, but this is one of the top ones with more than around 250 people signed up for this. So, yes, a great way to start this session would be drop your LinkedIn handles, connect with each other, and tell us in chat where you're joining us from. I am connecting from Copenhagen in Denmark, and Lashay, where are you joining us from?
I am joining you guys from Maryland.
Oh,
Yep.
wow. Absolutely amazing. Okay, so I'm
Yes.
going to get out of your way and leave the stage to you to run and tell us more everything about BOFU content driving pipeline. Over to you.
Awesome. All right. Hello, everybody. So, we're going to get started with just talking about not just BOFU content, but kind of like how I see it and some of my methodologies of how I put it together and what I do for my clients and things that I've learned over the past year of growing pretty quickly. So I'm going to share my screen with you all. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a Figma breakdown today. And then if you guys could just let me know if you see my screen, I think you should, but if you just give me the thumbs up. All righty. All right. Okay. So we're starting at the very top, no pun intended. Top of funnel versus middle of funnel versus bottom of funnel. So, why do I even start bottom of funnel? Like, why do you start there in the first place? So, over doing this for 15 years across agencies, in house, every possible thing you can think of, like, I've built affiliate sites from the ground up. The quickest way I've seen to get to pipeline from an organic content marketing perspective is starting bottom of the funnel. So the thing is, most content marketers and a lot of companies and a lot of, VPs and people that run marketing teams tend to think they should start at the top of the funnel for good reason, right? So when you go into a tool like Ahrefs or SEMrush or what have you, you'll see keywords with high search volumes, right? And for the people that don't understand the nuance of intent and things like that, there's they get shiny object syndrome with keywords, right? So the traditional thinking or the normal way of thinking is the higher the keyword search volume, the better it's going to be for us to go after this because we're going to get more eyeballs, we're going to get more attention, so on and so forth. That's how most people think about it. I think about it opposite, right? So instead of starting at the top of the funnel, I start at the bottom of the funnel. Why? Because top of the funnel is more based on clicks, engagement, impressions, just very surface level. I call engagement. Surface level meaning they're not deep and submerged into your way of thinking, your brand, your thoughts. So when people typically start top of funnel, usually these are some of the keywords that you come across with top of funnel, right? So it's very definition based. So a lot of the time it's what is topic, topic statistics, topic versus topic. And again, top of funnel content is usually objective, meaning that it can be cited from another source. There's a definition based around this specific term. There's not much of you injected in it. So when I say you, I just mean like your opinion, how you feel. Do I think it should be that way? No. I think the moment somebody enters your ecosystem, they should know how you view something and your take of how you solve that problem. So with Top of funnel content, again, it's more objective because it's centered around a definition. As we start moving down the funnel, that's when the content becomes more subjective. And it's because that's when you really start immersing people in your way of thinking. So, for example, with middle of funnel terms, or for any product marketers that might be here, jobs to be done is going to be how to, can I, and should I. So, when you're targeting terms like these, that's more of you submersing the prospect in your world and saying, okay, here's how our company solves this problem. And here's how we're going to help you do it too. In order to tell or show a prospect how your company solves a problem, you're going to have to let them into your way of thinking, right? That's when the content starts to become more subjective. And as you move further down the funnel into what I call bottom of funnel, you have keywords like best category software. So if I would just give you an example, best sales enablement software, competitor versus competitor, Gong versus Clary, competitor alternative, Clary alternative. And there's even some more that we could add in here, but I'll get to those in a little bit. But in my opinion, bottom of funnel content is the most subjective. And I believe it should be the most objective. Subjective. Again, top of funnel content, I believe should have subjectivity in it as well. But again, this is just from what I've seen in my learnings. I think bottom of funnel content should be the most subjective because this is the place where the prospect comes when they're ready to make a decision. So it's less of, oh, should we compare ourselves to our competitors, or we don't want to give our competitors attention. And I have some thoughts on giving competitors attention I'll probably talk about in a bit. But as it relates to subjectivity of bottom of funnel content, it should absolutely be subjective because only you can tell your company's story, and only you can properly convey to a prospect, okay, here's how we solve the problem, here's how we're better than other competitors, and here's the areas that we're better in, right? So it's not necessarily saying, oh, our competitors suck, they're trash, garbage, get them out of here. It's more so saying, okay, this is what we do good and this is what they do good. And I get a lot of pushback from companies about including competitors and things like that. The thing is, when you include your features in a piece, so we're going to get deeper into this, but when you include what your product does in the piece, it gives the prospect the right amount of information to be able to potentially make a decision on the actual article, right? And it's one of the reasons that bottom of funnel content is easier to track conversions from, because it's so close to the conversion point versus if we're starting up here, you know what I mean? It could take 3-6+ months to get down here. And people try to get on me all the time. They say, oh, the funnel's dead and the buying cycle isn't linear. And it's like, we know that, right? Of course. But this is just a way to kind of group people mentally where they are in the buyer's journey, right? So there's probably like dozens of touch points within each one of these specific areas. But the goal with this is just to help people conceptualize, okay, there are different stages mentally that a prospect goes through. High level awareness of maybe not even the problem, but the topic in general. This is where they start to become a little bit more aware of the job to be done, the thing that they're trying to accomplish. And here's where they're like, okay, I know my problem. Now I'm looking for a solution. This is where it's time to sell them. And then the thing is, if you do this right, you don't necessarily, and sell is such like a slimy word sometimes, but when I say sell, what I mean is talk to their pain points. That's how you sell somebody. You talk to their pain points and then you show them the bridge to get from their pain to the outcome. This is what bottom of funnel content is meant to do. So again, and I have here my personal opinion, I think it should be subjective from the jump. But again, this is just what I found. So I talked a little bit about this, but again, when I think of BOFU organic content, I'm thinking about keywords like best revenue operation software, you know what I mean? Head to head. So even with this one right here, this is one I didn't mention in the other one, competitor versus competitor versus competitor. So Gong versus Clary versus Outreach, right? So again, focusing on these are going to drive pipeline probably quicker than anything else you can do from an organic search engine perspective. With that being said, it's not as easy as, oh, let's go create a best sales enablement software and we're going to get conversions and we're going to drive pipeline. And the thing is, it's not that simple. It's actually, in my opinion, more difficult to write bottom of funnel content than it is to write top of funnel content. Again, the reason being is because of the subjectivity. And if we move over here, so the main nuance, again, with bottom of funnel content, over my 15 years of doing this, at least when I first started writing, and years after that, as a writer, I was taught to source information from Google. But the way that information is sourced is by typing in the target keyword that you're trying to rank for, and then looking at the top 10 search results to try to analyze, okay, who's ranking, why are they ranking, and then attempt to compile the top 10 search results and call it my own article and think that's going to outrank everybody else. Here's the thing. Maybe back in 2015, 2016, it did. Today, with the landscape of Google, and then you got AI doing all this stuff, and it's just not going to cut it anymore. The biggest pain I see with companies with trying to write bottom of funnel content is that they think they can hire random freelance writers. And I'm not saying freelance, I was a freelance writer forever. They're amazing. But they think they can hire these freelance writers, these random ones, and bring them into the company and feel like they're going to help us drive pipeline from organic. When the answer is actually no, they're not. You're actually making it harder on them. You're probably confusing them. It's frustrating them. That's one of the things. Again, the reason why this is so tricky is because a lot of the time, top of funnel information comes from Google. Again, it's objective. It can be cited at another source. You can get it from another website. Maybe it's like has a definition based term. Whereas middle funnel and bottom of funnel, there's really no definition based term for how you solve something. You solve it how you solve it, right? So there's no what is this? It's how to, but again, it's bringing them into your world. This will not come from Google, right? This is going to come from your internal team. And this is probably the single biggest reason why companies struggle so much is because they're trying to hire freelance writers to come in and source and move around Google and things like that to try to find the information when the information is sitting within their internal teams, right? So I feel like that's probably one of the biggest hangups. And again, if you're either working for a SaaS company or you're a freelancer for one or what have you, I would say you need to submerge yourself in the topic to truly understand the customer's pain points, how the company solves it, and not just the topic, but dive into the internal teams, right? And I know that's easier said than done. I know a lot of times subject matter experts don't have the time to do interviews, and I've heard all the problems. I'm going to offer hopefully what can be, some light solutions to that, or at least, try to, get you on the right path to be able to do those things. But this is why companies struggle. It's because they're trying to source their information from Google, and it's not in Google, it's internal. So moving from there, when we think about the content coming from internal teams, so the reason that they struggle is not just because the content has to come from internal teams, but it's because once they figure out, so let's just start, it takes people years. Like, y'all, it took me 15 years to figure this out. And the thing is, it's like when leaders figure this out, they're like, okay, this information isn't going to come from Google. Great. Okay, the random freelance writers aren't getting it. Awesome. I need to interview my internal teams and ask them questions and things like that. The problem is when they try to talk to the internal teams, there are a couple different things. Like, number one, the communication is probably siloed. So the sales team is over here, product team is over there. Everybody's just in their own little world, right? The issue with that is that you're not getting intel from the sales team. You're not getting intel from the product team. And you need intel from all these places to be able to talk to the prospect and speak to them. Again, going back to trying to hire random freelance writers to write bottom of funnel content. The thing with bottom of funnel content is like the person that's reading it is probably super knowledgeable in what they're doing. If you have a freelance writer that's not knowledgeable in the topic that they're trying to write about, not even freelance, even if you bring somebody in-house and just say, go do this for me, the person that's reading the article is going to be able to sniff out that this person has no clue what they're talking about, probably almost immediately. And I think that's another big difference between top and bottom of funnel. Top of funnel people aren't totally aware of their problem. So you can get away with somebody that's not aware of the arena or the industry or the space talking about that subject, right? Because the two people talking about it, they probably are on the same information level. Versus when you get to bottom of funnel, this person has probably been in the industry 10 plus years at this point. And again, this isn't hard data. This is all anecdotal, but this is what I've seen over and over and over again. So back to alignment across the team. So leaders figure out, okay, I need to, talk to my teams. The problem is there's no alignment. And the way to get alignment across teams, well, first of all, what is alignment, right? Alignment is the product team, the marketing team, sales, and customer success all agreeing on what the product is, what it does, and how it solves the problem. That's what alignment is. So how do we get that? Well, first of all, we got to cut that silo communication out. And I know I'm talking to y'all like a lot of you guys have the power to say, all right, we're going to change this. I'm just saying how it should be. So in an ideal world, these teams will be communicating with each other. And again, from going into different companies and being the liaison between these teams, these are the questions that you need to ask each team. And these are the questions that each team should get aligned on. It's not just these questions, but these are like some of the most important. So for the product team, how is our product positioned in the market? What are our customers' needs? How can we create features that address those needs? And what does the product roadmap look like? For the marketing team, what are customers searching for when looking for a solution like ours? How are we tracking leads from inbound content? How can we create features that address those needs? Well, this one is actually copied from here. My bad, y'all. So this one is more of like, actually, both of these are copied. Now you guys see me messing up live. But essentially, the marketing team is supposed to be aligned with the product team, who's supposed to be aligned with the sales team, right? So the sales team is going to talk about, how do they use the product in their day-to-day activities? What are the most used features of the product? What are the most common pain points that we hear? And then for customer success, what customers have a low support headache? Who are the largest accounts? Who do you view as the best customers? And what companies have you been able to sell additional products/services to? So I think this is a good starting point. Again, it's not everything, but if the teams can at least come to a consensus on this information, it's going to be a good start. Because again, if the product team could look at the product totally different than the sales team does. And if that's the case, that's going to show in your messaging. And the way to keep everything aligned is just make sure the different teams understand, again, what the product is, does, and who it helps. And this flows across every facet of your business, right? So it's going to be SEO, it's going to be YouTube, it's going to be email, it's going to be paid ads. It doesn't matter what you do. If you do not have alignment, you're not going to get the results. And this is why companies do not get the results. So that's my spiel on alignment. And I'll fix these two before I share this with you guys. So after you have alignment, like what comes after that? Because, we have alignment now. Okay, what's the next step? So the next step are going to be BOFU Elements. So this is what I call BOFU Elements based on, again, doing this forever. There are certain elements that make up a bottom of funnel article, right? Again, this is the big delineation between top of funnel and bottom of funnel. Bottom of funnel is more product focused. Again, information has to come from internal teams. So what I find is BOFU articles are comprised of usually these elements. It's the category your product sits in, your target audience, who's struggling to perform a task, and the current way they solve the problem isn't working. You explain the benefit, which is the result of them being able to solve the task, and how it is completed by a specific function of the product, which is the feature. And it's probably some people that would argue with me on like feature and capability. To me, they're not necessarily the same thing, but they're very, very closely tied together. So I have plus capability up here, and case study, which is a story of a previous customer with similar pains and how you help them solve that. So these are the BOFU elements. And once you realize this is what you need, and again, it took me forever to figure this out. Once you realize this is what you need, then you can kind of start playing with it a little bit. So to show you how this translates across the teams, because remember we talked about the teams needing alignment, to show you how this translates across teams, it'll look something like this. So this is an example article that I did maybe some years back. And it's hilarious because at the time I was writing this article, I actually wasn't this aware of how the information comes from different teams. But so let me back up here a little bit. So, customer success, one of the questions, what is the primary benefit you have received from the product, right? So, let me zoom in a little bit. The element is the benefit. And if you can see, custom tailor BidCan functionality to match your workflow, right? So this is a benefit. Again, this is something that's included in the article, and this is something that could come from customer success. We come down to sales. Out of all the features, what are the one or two people are most attracted to when buying? Remember, that was a question in the alignment. Come here. This is the feature. We back up a little bit. The product team. How does the product fit into their role? How does it help them reach their KPIs? We go back into that's where it's the capability. And here's the capability. And the product slash customer success team. How does a customer use your product? Contextual example. And this is something else that I don't see a lot of people talk about, but I think it's really important. Contextual examples in your content. So it's not enough to create an article and start feature dumping. What you really want to do is give contextualness to what you're talking about. If you ever have trouble remembering contextual, just think about it like this. Anytime you make a point, you need to back that point up. It's not enough to just talk about the feature. You also need to talk about how that feature helps and give me a real life scenario, give the prospect a real life scenario on how that helps them. So when you think of context, think of, for example, let's say, imagine this, what if, you know what I mean? So it's adding substance to what you're talking about, because it's one thing to just sit here and talk about, oh, features and capabilities and benefits, yada yada. But when you come down here, it's like, okay, for example, let's say a sales leader updates, it's giving you a live scenario of what this would look like. And again, this goes back to one of the questions, how is the product used in their day-to-day activities? When you figure that out from the other team, that's when you can inject that contextual example into the content to really resonate with the prospect. So backing up out of there, those are the BOFU elements. So now if we get into talking about how we would break down a content strategy. So I'm going to use Salesforce as an example for this. And again, I'm gonna leave some time for any questions that you guys have. Just throw them in the chat. I'm gonna get through as many as I can, but I just want to get all this in for you guys because it's a lot of info. But so if we take Salesforce as an example, and this is the farthest I can zoom out, I'll scroll over for you. When you think about a content strategy, a lot of people create content, to me, in a vacuum. They're just like, oh, okay, like we're just throwing it out there. Okay, this, that. But content actually needs strategy and intention behind it. So if we think about something like Salesforce, tons of different products, tons of different ideal customer profiles, buyer personas, segments, all types of stuff. If somebody threw me in the middle of Salesforce and was like, create a content strategy, here's probably how I would start to do that. So the first thing I would do is I would break it out by industry segment. So it's probably tons of these, but I'm just naming three. So revenue ops, order management, and sales engagement, right? So those are the three. Each of these three have different buyer personas, right? So we're not talking to the same person across these different segments. That's one thing to note. Again, because when you write your content in a vacuum, you're acting as if you're speaking to the same person every single time. No, it's like different people that has like different benefits and different value they get from your product. You want to speak to that. So starting with revenue operations, if we zoom in a little bit further. So again, if somebody threw me in the middle of Salesforce, they were like, okay, help us. I'm going to break it down. So first thing I would do is like break it out into revenue ops. Within each industry segment, I would create a top, middle, and bottom of funnel content strategy. So essentially, again, the buying cycle is not that linear. We know that. But this is how I would approach it. And the way this is set up, and again, I start bottom of funnel. There's two different ways you can do that. I'll get into it to a second. But top of funnel, again, it's not it doesn't always have to be definition based. That's what I find most of the time. Again, in my personal opinion, I think somebody should understand your opinion on the status quo the moment they enter your ecosystem. So for top of funnel, we have revenue operations team structure. What is revenue cycle operations? What is the cost of revenue operations, right? And middle of funnel is more, I did say jobs to be done, and it is jobs to be done, but you can also tailor middle of funnel content to be a conversion driver as well if you angle it the right way. So there's some nuance in there, but typically something that I see that works really, really well is template style keywords. So if it was like revenue operations strategy template keywords convert well. So that's middle of funnel. And then bottom of funnel, we have revenue operations software, revenue operations platform, revenue operations tool. So if you can see the intent here on the left, typically top of funnel content is going to drive people into like a higher, what's the word? Kind of like a higher awareness type of engagement. Like you're not asking for too much. Like maybe you'll give them an ebook, maybe they want to sign up for a webinar, so on and so forth. When you start getting them to middle of funnel, that's when you want to start giving away templates and playbooks and frameworks and all that other stuff. Even if we want to take it back to just relating it to the content that I do on LinkedIn, just to give you guys a contextual example, relating it to the content that I do on LinkedIn. So when I do middle of funnel content on LinkedIn, I have visuals that I lay out, right? So those are my frameworks. When we come down to bottom of funnel, we have revenue operations software, revenue operations platform. So these are always going to lead straight to a demo. And this is a hill I will die on. But I believe that your bottom of funnel content should serve one purpose, and that's to get the prospect from point A to point B. Point A is I'm having this pain point, I'm struggling right now. Point B is that you solve this pain point for me. So this is how I look at it. And again, if I'm zooming out here, I would do this across every industry segment. So revenue ops, order management, same, top, mid, bottom of funnel. Again, template keywords, examples, how to. Again, this one can actually be angled to be able to be a conversion driver. So how would I do that? Some people don't like this, but I believe if you do it the right way, it can still offer value. So how I like to do how-to pieces, I like to lead with how to actually do the thing, right? So if I was doing this, I would actually show somebody how to optimize order management, but then I would walk them through what that process looks like without me. And then I would turn around and walk them through what that process looks like with me. And then what I would do is for every pain point that I listed, I would match it to a feature of the product. And I talk about this, um, I've talked about this a little while and sometime before, but it's something I do called feature mapping. So a lot of the time, specific pain points relate to specific features. And if you can properly match those two up in an article, that's when it really starts to hit and that's when your conversions start to go up. So again, you can tailor these to be conversion drivers. It just takes a little bit more angling. And then if we move over to sales engagement, again, top, mid, bottom of funnel, what is sales engagement? Again, that objectiveness where it's like, okay, sales engagement has an actual definition to it. Again, I feel like you can inject subjectivity into top of funnel content because what is your definition of sales engagement? Like, what does it mean to you? I don't care just about a general definition. Like, I want to know what it means to you and your company. That's where I feel like subjectivity can be injected into top of funnel content. And again, we've got middle of funnel and bottom of funnel. Again, these should always lead straight to a demo. If you have anything that's best this versus that, you should not be leading them to anything ebook, email, nothing. Straight to a demo. When it comes to CTAs on bottom of funnel articles, I get a lot of questions about this. I don't go over the top, right? So what works best for me are in-link CTAs. I usually include 3, one right after the intro, one after I talk about the features, and one in the conclusion. Again, subject to test, like test images, test opt-in boxes, test all these things. But again, from doing this across multiple clients and, I found that in-text links convert very, very well. So when we talk about the strategy from a high level, again, we want to break it down by industry segment and then do a top, mid, bottom of funnel strategy within each of those segments. Speaking of this, there are 2 different ways you can tackle this. So way number 1 is you can go horizontal, right? So this is what I like to do. When I come into a company, so specifically for me, and this is just like a good rule of thumb for anybody, it's going to be harder to do bottom of funnel content if the niche you are in is a vertical niche. And the reason is because bottom of funnel content expands as the product expands. What I mean by that is, so for example, let's say Salesforce just did revenue operations, right? It wasn't like order, it wasn't anything else but this. Eventually, we're going to run out of these because the thing about bottom of funnel, and this is another big misconception, is that companies feel like they have to publish 20, 30, 40, 50 pieces a month in order to be able to get the results that they want. Maybe with top of funnel, you have to worry about publishing that much, but with bottom of funnel, it's not, it's a totally different ball game. It's always going to be quality over quantity with bottom of funnel. And the reason for that is because the intent of the piece is different than everything else. So, for example, if we think about top of funnel, the intent of the piece is to get somebody in your world, on your email list, in your webinar, what have you. That's not a really big commitment, in my opinion. I don't emails nowadays. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of protective of my email, but it's less of a commitment than saying I want to sign up for a demo right now. Way less of a commitment. So it's like you I don't want to say you don't have to get deep on top of funnel content. I believe you should get deep on everything, but it's with bottom of funnel content, it's really, really important, again, that you understand those pain points, the benefits of having them solved, the features that solve them, and the contextualness behind the feature so you can talk about it in the piece. So the first way to do this is to run a horizontal, what I call BOFU sprint. So again, Salesforce threw me in. They're like, help us generate pipeline across multiple industry segments. This is how I'm doing it. And then I'm just going straight across like this. The other way you could do this is you could do a vertical play. So again, if the niche you are in is vertical, it's going to be trickier to do this because these are going to run out quicker, and it's going to force you to have to move up the funnel, which is okay. Like, again, middle of funnel content, jobs to be done style keywords can be tailored to drive that conversion. But it's just, when it comes to this, it's just a little bit more trickier versus bottom of funnel content where it's more straightforward. But yes, if you're in a vertical niche, you're going to run out of bottom of funnel terms quicker. But again, these are two different ways you could play this when you're coming in to do a content strategy. So I know that's a lot of information. I'm going to stop it right here and open up for, and I know you guys have been asking questions. I'll answer some of these questions. Do I typically use Figma to plan out the strategy? Yes, I do. So I do my onboarding calls in Figma. I do my vertical breakdowns in Figma. It's just super helpful as it relates to being able to visually see what I need to do. And not just that, right? It helps the clients a ton because the easier you can break down a complicated, complex process, the easier it's going to be for the decision maker to be like, okay, I get it. I want to hire this person because, you know what I mean? Because when you take when leaders take things to like their upper, management and their leadership and things like that, the quicker they understand what you're here to do, the quicker you're going to get the deal signed. Being complicated is not as cool as people think it is. It's like, you sound smart to peers, but then when it comes to the decision makers, it's like, I'm confused, and confusion doesn't sell. Simplicity does. What types of BOFU content would you recommend when you have two distinct buying personas that have differing needs when it comes to how they use your product? Great question. So, what types of BOFU content would you recommend when you have two distinct buying personas? So, David, very similar to what I mentioned on, and you know what, let me just share this with you. So, very similar to what I mentioned here, right? So, I did not add the buyer personas in here. That's my fault. But each one of these has a different buyer persona. We're not talking to the same person across multiple segments. Each one of these pieces are going to be tailored to the specific buyer persona that we're talking to. Do I come into a case where there are multiple buyer personas for one segment? Yes. That's where it gets a little bit more nuanced. And again, pain points, benefits, features, they're going to have to be broken down per buyer persona within the segment, if that makes sense. And if I need to like lay out a visual for you guys later, let me know. But just pretend like there's another green box up here, right? So I'm doing some stuff for y'all live right now. There's another green box, and I have it in another visual, and I can't remember what the buyer persona is for this one. But if we just pretend like, right, and we put this up here, each one of these has a different buyer persona that we're going to be talking to. Again, there's a possibility that there can be multiple buyer personas within a segment. In that event, you just, all those BOFU elements I told you about. So let me ride over back here. So these BOFU elements I was talking about, you want to break these down per buyer persona, right? So first of all, start with the segment. If there's one buyer persona per segment, this is all you need. If there are multiple buyer personas, let's just pretend there are. Okay. So this is like buyer persona elements 1. This is going to be buyer persona 2, buyer persona 3, right? So you just break it out. That way, you're talking to the person that you're specifically trying to talk to. Again, not writing that content all in a vacuum. Is there a difference? TOFU order management guide from MOFU, how to optimize order management. So I would say so. Again, I mean, an order management guide could be more of a download versus how to optimize order management is, to me, more of a job to be done, right? So order management guide, and some people might fight me on this. Again, to me, how to optimize order management is more of the job to be done. Order management guide is almost like someone looking for a guide or a big block of information on the piece, where how to optimize order management is a specific thing that they're trying to do, which is why I said order management guide is top of funnel, where how to optimize order management is more middle of funnel. Could you possibly switch the two and say order management guide is MOFU? Sure, right? But I think the overarching point is just like understanding the delineation between like the top of funnel, where it's like more definition based, and middle of funnel, right? So even in the beginning, if that's too like nuanced, just look at it like the job to be done is going to be how to, can I, should I, and leave it there. And then as you start to learn more about more middle of funnel and things like that, you'll start to pick up on the nuances. But I would say, yes, to me, order management guide is just more they're looking for a bigger guide, where how to optimize is more of a job to be done. They're looking for something a little more specific to the thing that they're trying to solve. How do you deal with cannibalization issues? For example, if you want to rank with a product page for a product keyword, should you create a blog post / guide to expand on that topic? Another great question. How do I deal with cannibalization issues? So first of all, before I even write the piece, I go to Google and I and I told y'all in the beginning, I don't do it how I used to do it. I don't take the top 10 articles and compile them together. But what you should always do is look at the keyword that you're trying to rank for. Based on that, check out the search intent in Google, right? So look at the top 5, because I say the top 10, but everybody knows we all want to be in the top 5, right? Preferably the top 3, really number 1. But if you look at the first page, it's going to let you know the intent. So for example, if you like go to Google right now and type in best sales enablement software, you're probably going to see more blog posts than you see product pages. That's an indicator to me to let's go ahead and do a blog post around this piece versus a product page. Do I see product pages ranking for best? Sure, right? But they may not convert as well. That's a whole nother topic for another professional on paid ads. But I think as it relates to that, I just think you need to understand the intent. Intent is very important. Remember in the beginning, I talked about leaders look at search volume as the end all be all. That's not it. It's intent. So when you go on Google and you look at the, top results, if you see the majority of them are product pages, go with a product page play. If you see the majority are like best of, and now I'm waiting for somebody to ask me the question, okay, like what if you see both though? The thing is with me, I'm not gonna lie to y'all. Like sometimes it's a gut decision. If it's just really bad, it's like 5 product pages and 5 like best this for that. I'll assess what the company has already, because a lot of the time it's gonna be easier to take something I already have versus trying to create something new. That goes for blog posts as well. So even with cannibalization issues with blog posts, what I would do is like run an audit of the website, specifically their bottom of funnel terms, see if those terms are ranking for other terms they don't mean to rank for. And then what you could do is craft the article to intend to rank for that term. I hope that makes sense. That was a lot of like terms. But basically, if you see a bottom of funnel article that's already trying to rank for something else, then you tailor that piece more toward that. But yes, I use Google as my guide. And if they're like, okay, the intent is product page, we're going to go product page. If the intent is blog post, we're going to go blog post. What are the best distribution channels for these types of BOFU content? Ooh, I like this question. Okay. Distribution channels. So there's so much you can do with bottom of funnel content because it has so much great insight. So for example, one of my clients right now has really big company, 5 different products. we're doing the thing I told you with the BOFU sprint across the product lines. And what they've decided to do is that one of the bottom of funnel articles is converting so well for them. What we're going to do is we're going to take it and turn it into a webinar. And the webinar is going to be specifically for people that are already in the email list that have been through, because email is a whole separate thing. I'm not going to get into that, but I do believe there should be like an email strategy as well. When you get them to the point of conversion on an email, you can take something that was working for bottom of funnel and translate it into a webinar. So like, for example, if you do, I wouldn't do a best of. I'll probably eat these words later. Right now, I wouldn't do like a best this for that webinar. It would be more of like talking about the features. So the features that I talked about in the blog post, those are the same features I'm going to turn around and talk about in the webinar. And I know it converts because it's converting for me in the blog. So we take that, repurpose it over to a webinar. Another thing that a lot of people don't do, run paid ads to your bottom of funnel blog posts. Not only does it give you insight into which keywords are going to convert quicker than others, it also lets you know what you need to rank. So a lot of people ask me like, oh, well, I've got like dozens of keywords. Which ones do I need to rank first? I like to run paid ads to bottom of funnel content because, again, it gives me an insight into which pieces are going to convert. And then based on the pieces that convert, I can prioritize, okay, we need this one to rank. We need this one to rank. It's all strategic play in the background, but it's backed by data, you know? I also think, this is a whole nother topic, I also think you should have a paid campaign running in conjunction with your organic content as well. Again, I think one thing I used to do that worked really, really well, for case study style blog posts, and I have a post I put out maybe like 2 weeks ago, how to SEO power your case studies. For posts like that, I would run Facebook ads to them and they would do really, really well. I've run some Facebook ads to best of before and some verses. They did okay too. But story-based content does really, really good when it comes to social ads, Twitter, Facebook. And yes, I said Twitter. Twitter's a good place too. It's very well, with all the changes, I don't know. I take that back. I don't know, y'all. With all the new changes, I'm not sure. Used to be a great place to be able to run ads to blogs, but Facebook for sure, Google ads for sure, LinkedIn. I haven't seen too many people running bottom of funnel ads on LinkedIn. I would like to see it though. I think that would be cool. Do I have a visual example for pain point and feature mapping? Yes, I do. Let me screenshot this so I don't forget because my memory is like, I'm 30, y'all, but my memory is like 82. I just screenshotted that. I'm gonna get the pain point and feature mapping visual for you guys and make sure I share that. Do you have a template you start with for every client? Yes. So this session wasn't necessarily supposed to be like about my consultancy. This is more about like how to do bottom of funnel content. But if I could dive over here real quick. Oh yeah. One thing that I'll let you guys know if you don't know about me already, I hate writing. Like I hate it so much. And it almost made me contemplate if I wanted to be a strategist or not. Cause I'm like, damn, like, do I have to write if I want to? I don't write anything. The team does the writing. I provide the strategic direction behind that. So everybody has a template they come into, right? So I've built my entire business in Notion. And what I've done is made, I guess without knowing it at first, it was like a collaborative workspace where I got all the team members in there. We talked together. Remember going back to that marketing and sales alignment. I got somebody from each team in. We talked, we went through the product features, sales questions, everything like that, matched everything up. And then we would work within that Notion. That's another thing for any aspiring consultants. If you want to build a consultancy, like I would highly consider productizing. This is not a productizing spiel, guys. I'm just saying what's worked for me. having a system to plug clients in over and over and over again is going to make your life so much easier. It's going to keep you off calls. It's going to allow you to do the deep work that, that I'm showing you now. It's like you need thought and brain energy to come up with this stuff. Can't do that being on calls all day. So I think one of the biggest things for me, one of my biggest hacks, that word, one of my biggest hacks with all this was like, yes, having a template that I plug everybody into. To be fair, the client has to fit that template. So for example, if a company comes to me and they don't have their product market fit, I can't work with them. You know what I mean? Because in order to do bottom of funnel content, you need to have your product market fit. You need to understand your differentiators, your value propositions, and just certain things that companies don't understand that don't have their product market fit. But yes, long drawn out answer to a question. Do I have a template I start with for every client? Yes, I do. Where are you finding this audit info? All right. So if there's any technical SEOs in here, y'all might kill me. But honestly, I just go through the website. A lot of companies I work with don't have a ton of bottom of funnel content. I can just go on the blog and just kind of like scan through it a little bit. I use Ahrefs as well in the organic keyword tab just to see what they're ranking for. Another thing I like to do is to take one of their competitors, plug them into Ahrefs and see what bottom of funnel terms they're ranking for, and take those back to the client and see if it makes sense from a head-to-head perspective. Because I told you guys I was going to touch on this before. I'm glad I remembered. You have to be cognizant of who you're going up against with a comparison, because, and let me hold on. Contextual examples, y'all. Contextual examples. Okay. So if you're going up against, let's say you're in a SaaS and you have multiple segments, multiple product lines, whatever. So we come here, bottom of funnel. So NetSuite versus Salesforce, right? Let's pretend there was another versus article over here for the sales engagement segment. The features that you compare in this one are probably going to be totally different from the features you compare in this one. That's something that you want to keep in mind. And again, it's about understanding your value propositions and what you bring to the table over the other competitor. It's not about shading the other competitor. It's not about any of that. It's about accurately speaking to the thing that you do well and the thing that they do well. And what happens is when you do that, the prospect will actually self-select themselves out. Because if they're like, well, you know what? NetSuite is probably a better option to me than Salesforce. Let me go over there, check them out. You just save the sales team time. You just saved yourself time. You know what I mean? It's almost like a filter. It serves as a filter when you actually start to talk about head to head what you do good and what they do good. Again, it's not about shading them. It's about giving higher quality leads to the sales team. Like, that's our job as marketing, is to drive people to sales. What happens? Sales get that information, they give it back to us, we put it back out, we drive in. It's all an information cycle. Increase the speed of publishing. It's a good question. Frameworks. So bottom of funnel content, again, is very nuanced. It's a learning curve. When I come into companies, like, usually that first month people are irritated as hell with me because they're like, what do you have me doing here? I've never done this in my life. This is crazy. But it's like after that first month, they're like, oh, I get it. Oh, this makes sense. And having templates and frameworks there for them to be able to plug the information in, hence why the company is called Authority Plug, for them to be able to plug the information into the frameworks and be able to take that and run with it. And again, for me, I've been doing this for 15 years. Over that period of time, I've come up with about, I don't know, maybe like 10 plus frameworks that convert really well at this point. So what I do is, like, I plug the clients into them and I let them know where everything should go based on the information that we got from sales, CS, product, and then, of course, we're the marketing team. So all that information that we got, that's what I help them come to an agreement on. And then once we come to an agreement on that, that's when we start plugging that information into their bottom of funnel pieces. Once they get the hang of it, they're probably busting out maybe like 4 of these a month. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but again, it's always quality over quantity when it comes to bottom of funnel, because the intent is to get the person to convert. The thing is, would you rather have 100 people visit and 10 people convert, or like 1,000 people visit and one person convert? That's a real thing, right? It's like, if you, again, the whole delineation between top, mid, and bottom of, it's like you're going to get probably tons of traffic top of funnel, but those conversions aren't going to be hitting. Versus when you go bottom of funnel, you're going to get less traffic, but those conversions are going to be way, way up. And by the time the company starts to see the conversions and they're seeing the pipeline, to be quite frank with you, they don't really give a shit about the traffic at that point. They're just like, this is working, right? So that's how I get companies in the groove of like publishing quickly, just using templates and frameworks. That's like a cheat code to almost anything. If you know something really, really well, make a template or a framework out of it, sell it. Any last questions for anybody? What is the tool called? Figma. And then what I use to plug my clients, and I use Notion. You're welcome. What do I mean by template? Oh, that's a good question. So template, so I guess like a standardized way you do something, right? So to me, like those BOFU elements that I showed you, my templates are comprised of those. So like if you do paid ads, your templates, you might have ad templates and things like that. The thing is, so how it works for me and how it could work for any other aspiring consultants too. I consult with my clients, I work with them, I see what works, I teach what works, and then I just do it all over again. So the consultancy brings in the information that I then put out to you guys, that I then test and switch and everything like that. And if something works in the consulting, if I'm working with a client, I will take that and templatize it and see if it works in another place. If it starts working in another place, templatize it, move it somewhere else. And again, I think it's just easier to teach teams with a system like that. And eventually they start to get the hang of it and they'll start playing with it too, right? They'll start rearranging things and they might find something that worked better than you. When that does happen, the information comes to me. I send it out on LinkedIn. I teach it to everybody. So it's almost like continuous periods of inflection where you're learning and you're putting back out into the world.
Thank you so much for that amazing session, Lashay. I think people are going a little bit crazy in the chat. And
Oh my gosh.
the question that I'm hearing is, how did people get their hands on all of these resources and everything you're
Oh
sharing?
my goodness. Okay, so I'm gonna share this entire Figma with you guys. Let me clean it up a little bit because y'all see I messed up a little bit. So let me clean it up. I'm gonna share it with everybody. I know somebody asked me for the feature mapping. I'm gonna get that one together too and get some other resources together for you guys. I have a free content marketing dashboard that I give away to everyone. If you guys want to grab that, you can go to authorityplug.com/content hyphen dashboard. Essentially, and the cool part about this, guys, it's essentially V1 of a product. I had no idea at the time I was building it, but I've got some exciting stuff coming up in a couple months. So I figured I'd tease that out a little bit. But yeah, that dashboard is completely free for everybody. Almost close to 2,000 marketers have grabbed it. People love it. They use it for different use cases. So grab that. Hopefully that helps you guys out. I'll be sharing more resources and I've got all this stuff on LinkedIn for you guys. So,
Yeah,
yes.
I think my biggest advice is please, everybody who does not follow Lasha on LinkedIn, do it ASAP because she is sharing all of this information in a much more detailed, broken down way every single day. So I think Lash is grabbing her LinkedIn handle right now, as I can tell.
Yeah, somebody asked me for the
Absolutely.
link for, I think, the dashboard. Let me grab that for you and I'll place it in the chat.
Perfect. And I'm going to get all of all of these resources from Lashay, and obviously put that in the recap email. And Danielle, I think Lashay is grabbing the link right now as we speak. Before we
I'm
end it, you're
grabbing it,
gonna
guys. I'm grabbing
she's gonna
it.
have it in the chat. But yeah, I
All
just want
right.
to say thank you so much. This was so much fun because it's also not often that we have sessions where you're really like walking through your entire way of working and showing everything, sharing everything so openly. So thank you so much for the generosity.
Thank you guys for having me. Super excited. I hope that if you guys like this, maybe we can come back and do another session. Maybe we'll get deeper
On email.
into keyword research that section. I didn't get a chance to touch on that. So maybe we'll do that. But
Absolutely.
super
And maybe
happy you
on that
guys.
note, I think all of you have my email, prag@revgenius.com. If you have any ideas on if you have requests
Gotcha.
on what Lashay should be coming back and teaching us again, drop me an email and tell me what you want to hear from her, and I'll try to put it together.
Yes, guys, let us know. Let us know. We'd love to come back and be able to do another one for you guys.
Absolutely. All right. With that, I'm going to end the session. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I'm surprised we are 2 minutes over and we still have more than 50 people in the session. So, yeah.